Thank you for joining me on this Sunday. I'm meteorologist Brian Shields. I want to get to this, which is on track. Today will be the key to the forecast. I want to get into the possible intensity and track, but today it all gets tied together. I'll get into that in a moment. We're going to keep an eye on Franklin, and as we get back through St. Lucia, Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, Grenada, St. Vincent The Grenadines, a strong tropical wave will be moving our way as we go throughout the week. I want to break that down further, of course, and again, get into what's going on with Bermuda and Canada. A lot of eyes, though, on this, of course, what's happening in the Northwestern Caribbean, and keeping an eye on that flood threat near the Cayman Islands back toward the Yucatan of Mexico as we go throughout the day. Now, here's the very latest. Again, on track from what I was showing you yesterday. As expected, Hurricane Center came out with the track, and even they were saying, hey, this is going to become a hurricane, and they too are concerned about the intensity. Great men and women down there do a wonderful job at the National Hurricane Center. Now, with that said, the biggest concern will be, can this rapidly intensify? It can. It's a possibility with those super warm water temperatures. Again, this is something we've been talking about the last several days, which has been my concern with this system. Right now, tropical storm warnings out parts of the Yucatan of Mexico, my friends in western Cuba, with the possibility of some heavier rainfall. This will lift to the north. I'm going to break this track down in just a second. Let me show you the computer models now, and I want to get into what they mean. Now, they are very tightly clustered. That's a good thing. When they're almost all together, that's a higher confidence forecast. But I want to show you what could shift this later today. But right now, it would take a hurricane very close to the Big Bend, this Bend area here of Florida. So again, higher impacts North Florida, and as you get into northeastern Florida, and then swinging heavier rain back through Georgia and South Carolina on this heading, that would still bring some rain bands into central and South Florida and a tornado risk. Now, here's what's going on inside the models. Those are just squiggly lines showing us a track, but how strong will it be? And yesterday I was mentioning how I think it would be stronger, and now the models are into agreement on that. You see here, this is over time, 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours, 96 hours. So you go out a day, 2 days, 3 days. 3 days, almost all of the bigger models have this in this yellow shading here. That's a Category 1 hurricane. Occasionally, some of those stronger models pop up here as you get kind of some of the latest data saying, hey, this does at least have the possibility to really strengthen even further. And then you see that weakening. That weakening is because it runs into land. So again, a system that runs into land will eventually weaken, and then we'll keep an eye on it near the Carolinas and Georgia as we get down the road. Now, here is the key to today, and I don't often show this. This is kind of behind the scenes stuff. This here, very wordy. Okay, this is 1 flight, 2 flights, 3, 4, 5. We're all the way up to, let me just get down, 7 flights today. This is a bulletin from the National Hurricane Center. What they're doing today, they're basically taking all of their aircraft and flying it in and around this. And they don't just fly inside this system. They get way out ahead of it with some of their NOAA planes. They fly way up there. And what they do is they sample the environment ahead of it. Point being, with all of this, the data today becomes very good. Then it gets put in the computer models, and then by late tonight, but more so tomorrow morning, then those computer models become really good and really reliable. So there could be a shift depending on what these planes find in the atmosphere, but by tomorrow morning, things should be in very good alignment as far as where this will go and potentially how strong it'll get. Today is the day they just throw everything they've got in there to try to figure out what is going to happen with this, but it takes a little time, then it gets into the models. But again, I'm looking at everything out there for you. So this is pretty much the map I showed you yesterday. Again, I didn't even change this at all. The most likely scenario, Monday, tomorrow, it's really going to start to strengthen as it pulls away. Now, it's actually drifting south now. It's going to actually meander down here. That's why I'm worried about the flooding in parts of Cuba and Mexico. And then as it lifts to the north, it will start to strengthen tomorrow, becoming a hurricane on Tuesday. Wednesday, the day there will be a landfall in Florida with this system. Now, what does that mean? What do you need to do? Well, the first thing is awareness. You're watching this video, and that is the first thing. You're aware that there is a system out there. And as I mentioned, again, tomorrow morning, there could be a little bit of a shift in the models depending on that data. But anywhere across the panhandle of Florida, back through coastal sections of, say, the Tampa area, Central Florida area, lifting up to the north, that's where you should start making those hurricane prep. So over towards Cedar Key, Inverness, for example, swinging all the way back through the panhandle of Florida. Not so much interior sections of Central Florida or South Florida, but we need to monitor it for the potential of a shift in the system, and we know how it goes. My friends in South Florida, we talked about this last year when I was forecasting Ian with you, how it took that bigger swing. And again, those water temperatures are a big concern. And that's why I'm highlighting all the way down through Miami. Make sure you have those hurricane kits at least ready in stock, just in case. Again, just in case this were to make a change, but I'll be able to kind of fine tune that for you tomorrow. But again, these coastal sections in the panhandle of Florida, you want to make those hurricane preps. And yes, keeping a very close eye on the potential of the surge with this, especially as it gets broader and gets stronger. Now, how is this going to move? What are the steering conditions? Well, what's going to happen is it's all hinging on Franklin, right? That's the hurricane that is going to be close to Bermuda. That has to move out of the way first. As that moves out of the way, high pressure builds in, and you get that flow around this that is clockwise, and that will allow this system to kind of drift to the north. But then there's a fence up here. There's a front up here, so that's why this system's not going to swing back toward Texas. The front up here will then kind of allow this to curve and bend a little bit back toward Florida. But my friends in Mississippi and Alabama, just like I said yesterday, watching for you, keep a very close eye on this, because the models have been trending a little bit more to the west, and that's because it's drifted a little bit more to the south and it's slower. If it stays slower, and has a better opportunity to be a little bit more to the west. So again, Alabama, Mississippi, and I know down through New Orleans, keeping a close eye on the system. Got you covered for any changes. Now, let me get to the American model. The American model is basically like all the models. I showed you those lines, so I'll just go with this. This is exactly what almost exactly what the European model is showing as well. So for all intents and purposes, this is the European and the American model at this point. It's good when they're in agreement. We'll see if there's any changes later. So this is by the time we get into late tomorrow. It starts to lift to the north, and that's when there'll be even better organization as it lifts away from the Yucatan Peninsula. So at that point, we'll start to see more strengthening later in the day tomorrow. And then after that, you see how Franklin clears. This is going to lift up to the north, and at this point, by the time we get into later on Tuesday, that's when it will most likely strengthen into a hurricane. You see it kind of getting wrapped up right here, pulling away. Now, we'll start to see some of those rain bands trying to squeak in, especially into North Florida and the west coast of Florida by the time we get into late on Tuesday. And I'm going to watch that surge even over toward the Tampa Bay area. Then by the time we get into Wednesday morning, it could be, I don't love the term rapid intensification, because I know how the national media loves to latch onto those kind of terms and blow them out of proportion, but let's just say it could strengthen very quickly. Water temps, I'll show you those in a second. I want to show you the wind field as well. This is by the time we get into Wednesday morning. Highest impacts wherever this goes will be Wednesday morning through the day on Wednesday, and then shooting inland. And if it stays on this track, my friends in Georgia, based on the terrain and the tree type we have, the vegetation in Georgia, that would cause a lot of down trees, especially central and southern Georgia with this system, and some flooding rain. Now, as this lifts to the north, there could be some of those feeder bands getting into central Florida and into South Florida. And on this heading, that would increase the tornado risk for Central Florida and South Florida. While the worst weather would stay to the west, again, there's always that threat of an isolated tornado depending on how those rain bands take shape. All right, here's the wind field, and again, there is Franklin. Now this here, kilometers an hour and 50 miles per hour. I do this channel for safety, and I do it for across the Caribbean for us throughout the year to keep us up to date on what's going on. So I've got kilometers an hour and miles per hour. Got you covered either way, whatever you want to use. All right, so as we work our way into later tomorrow, as I mentioned, see the wind field starting to get better organized. You see the center of that thing pulling away from the Yucatan, which is good because I need to get this flooding away from the Yucatan. Well, not me. I wish I had that control. But that'll lift up to the north, and you see again some of that white shading there. Those are winds of 50 miles per hour or 80 kilometers an hour. So it's a strengthening tropical storm by the time we get into late tomorrow. Then as we move forward into Tuesday, this will be the concern. What does it do? And I want to show you the wind shear as well. What does it do with these very warm water temperatures? So as we work our way, it gets into Tuesday morning. It gets a little bit broader, better organized. Then as we go throughout the day, it is going to really tighten up and get a bit stronger as we work our way on Tuesday. And Tuesday will be the day to see if it does rapidly intensify. We'll be able to see how strong it gets. And then you see some of the red shading starting to show up right here. This is by 5 o'clock on Tuesday. So that would be winds right around 70 miles per hour. 74 is a hurricane. And then you see again all these reds, and there's even even some of that yellow in there, that would be winds of 90 plus. So the National Hurricane Center even has that as right around a Category 2 hurricane making landfall, but they, like me, are cautioning that it could get even a little bit stronger depending on how it shakes out. And then you see those winds working their way into North Florida and Georgia. Backside, again, some gustier winds possible. Central Florida, especially on the south side as this pulls away with some of those rain bands trying to work in. So that's how it stands right now. And again, all the models in that agreement, but the caveat, the kind of concern is, or not really concern, but just anticipation is what do these planes find today? And how does that impact the models? So we'll see how that works out overnight and tomorrow morning. Now, the water temperatures, where this is going, unfortunately, is some of the warmest water in the entire Atlantic Basin. The Atlantic Basin is the Atlantic Ocean, Gulf of Mexico, and the Caribbean. You see this kind of pink shading here, 31 degrees Celsius. So we're looking at, that's about 88 degrees Fahrenheit, if my math is right. We have some water temperatures that I've been checking in the 90s in parts of the Gulf of Mexico, and the heat content's pretty substantial. Not so much here, but a little bit more over here. That means it's not just warm at the surface, but it's warm kind of down below, and that's a problem because, yeah, as these systems move by, they churn up the water, kind of cool down the water a little bit, but the heat content, that means it's pulling up still warm water, and it allows it to kind of strengthen further. So point being, the warm water, a massive concern with this. You know it as well. Again, that has been the concern even last year when we were tracking Ian. So here's a scenario with the wind shear. This is by Tuesday. Now, wind shear are winds coming in at an opposite direction of the storm, and as these thunderstorms in the hurricanes build up, the wind shear comes across upper levels and knocks off the thunderstorms, and that's a good thing because then it can't organize, right? So wind shear is our friend during the hurricane season. But what's happening is here, look at this. Now, I know this map, there's a lot going on here. Here's Florida. Here's the Yucatan, my friends in Belize, Jamaica, Cayman Islands, Cuba, just to set the map. This is where the system will be a strengthening tropical storm turning into a hurricane as we work our way into, this is into Tuesday. Now, you see this brighter color here? That's the wind shear. You see how it's kind of just to the north of it and some wind shear just to the south of it. So actually on its track, there's this pocket of lesser wind shear, which is a concern. The wind shear is close by, but it's not right kind of on top of it. So we'll have that window to strengthen. So the wind shear looks like it'll hold off. We have the super warm water. That's an issue with this system. All right, so impacts are coming, not for all of us. Again, a storm doesn't hit everybody, so I'll be able to fine tune it for you. Again, I know it's a higher anxiety time of year. I do not like storms. I do not root for storms. Been in way too many and seen what they do. So again, I'll be able to fine tune again who needs to make those preps as we go forward. As far as flooding is concerned, watching the northwestern Caribbean. Again, we've had some areas of rain, and we need to see how this meanders around. But Florida, as I mentioned, in some locations need to make those preps. All of Florida needs to monitor this and make sure you have your hurricane kits. But as far as the full-fledged hurricane preps, that's more so right around the Big Bend area and those coastal sections all the way down through Tampa and coastal sections through the panhandle of Florida. Power outages are likely as this moves onshore Wednesday and even up through Georgia if it stays on this current heading with the vegetation, as I mentioned, and keeping a very close eye on that surge, the Tampa Bay area, and to the north as this system moves by. Even if it doesn't move into Tampa, again, as it moves, if it moves by to the west, that could bring in that surge and that midweek landfall as we work our way into Wednesday. My dog is right by my feet. I got to be careful where I back up. All right, so we've got, excuse me, girl. So Franklin is out there. I'll get to that. Idalia, it'll get that name most likely later today, maybe even tomorrow, just depending on how the system goes today. Either way, that's semantics. All right, good resource, and these are my friends. Florida is blessed with amazing meteorologists. I know them personally. Again, I think it's because a lot of the meteorologists have been through a whole lot, and you don't get drawn into the hype with systems. Because, again, if you live in a spot that gets these storms, you don't mess around with them. WFTV.com, good resource. You got Tom there, George there, Cassie there. I'll be live with the live streaming as well as we work our way through this system. So a really good resource for you if you're in the Florida area or if you're traveling to the Florida area, get the information on sandbags and that sort of thing. So again, I can't stress that enough. Excellent, excellent resource. So just have that bookmarked. All right, here's the broader picture. Now, as I mentioned, Eastern Caribbean, all eyes off to this, but there's a little bit better news. Now, there's going to be 2 tropical waves coming off, okay? The first one looks like it'll kind of spin away. Not a big issue. Second one may try to hang together, but that is way down the road. There's not much more to show you than that. I mean, that next tropical wave is still here. There's another one way the heck back there. So again, I'll be watching against stronger tropical waves getting closer, but I want to get to the Caribbean in a second because we have a tropical wave that'll move in on Tuesday. See the action kind of building right there. This here, though, that is Franklin. So watching Franklin. And by the way, as you get this circulation here, how about us in Jamaica? We've had those scattered showers and storms. We had them yesterday. We had them last night, and we'll see some of those again today. Now, as far as Franklin goes, Bermuda, please keep a close eye on this because we had the good news yesterday where this will kind of hook a little bit more away from Canada. But as it does, it'll be a little bit closer to Bermuda. Right now on this heading, that's a safe distance. But if it shifts any closer, it's not. So again, Bermuda, you're very weather savvy. So again, I know you're staying on top of this. Here it is again, and you can see how it will eventually hook. Now, watching over toward Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, and watching these fronts. So there's going to be a front up here that'll help kind of hook this thing. Bermuda by Tuesday, again, a safe distance away, aside from the high seas, of course. Thinking of our mariners and our captains that are a big part of this channel. So, of course, thinking about the high seas and the rip currents, not downplaying anything. But as we work our way into Tuesday into Wednesday, again, just kind of curling around. Now, eastern, even New England in the Atlantic region of Canada, eastern Canada, a lot of rain moving in. That's really tied to a front, but the core of this system should be a miss for at least Nova Scotia, but pretty close to Newfoundland as we work our way into Thursday later this week. So I'll be monitoring that very closely. Now, as we work our way down toward the Caribbean, even some of that rain trying to build back toward Hopkins, Ladyville, Belize City, we've had some of the rain north coast of Honduras, and we had a flare-up of rain El Salvador, Guatemala yesterday, looking okay in southwest coast of Mexico. Costa Rica, Panama, scattered rain and storms. Same thing as we get into the Colombia. Now let me show you this next tropical wave and what's going on here. So again, a little bit messy over here because we've got those remnants of GERT that have just kind of been hanging around. No organization with that, even though you see this blob there. Always watching things, though. But you see this tropical wave? This is what's going to work in on Tuesday. As it stands now, I'm not seeing development with it, but I am concerned about some of the flooding that could work into Trinidad and Tobago and Grenada, even up through St. Lucia and Barbados and St. Vincent The Grenadines for the week ahead. So again, I covered this area. I'll get into the Eastern Pacific in just a second, but let's go out in time here. This is today into tomorrow, and then I'll stop it here. By tomorrow, spotty showers, Venezuela, Trinidad, Haiti, Dominican Republic, few scattered showers and storms, but you see that next blob of rain moving in. I'll keep an eye out for any signs of organization, but at the least, this tropical wave is going to start to work in on Tuesday, and you see with me that flare-up of rain right there, Barbados, near St. Lucia. I'll keep an eye on Dominica, south through Trinidad and Tobago, northern Venezuela. Flooding will be a potential. So Trinidad, got my eyes on you. Again, you could spread the word that on Tuesday it is looking on the wetter side with the next tropical wave that will be moving in. This is Tropical Depression 10 on the Eastern Pacific side. Eastern Pacific has a totally different list of names. That's over here. This one should eventually fizzle out. And elsewhere, not a whole lot going on. I am watching, again, that flare-up of some rain parts of Mexico, but I mean, not a lot going on as far as development is concerned. This here, the Yucatan of Mexico, watching out for those areas of flooding. 70% chance of rain in Belize today. Isolated areas of flooding. Keep me posted in the comments. It'll be interesting to see how this just kind of spins around off the coast. Cayman Islands today, we could get some areas of flooding. And even watching over toward Jamaica, rain chance this morning at about 50 to 60%. Later in the day, about 40%. Keep an eye on isolated flooding. Puerto Rico, a little bit drier and hotter. Isolated shower storm. Turks and Caicos, about a 30% chance the next 3 days. The Bahamas, 30 to 40% chance. I'll be keeping an eye on, of course, what will be Idalia, and we'll see how that plays into the forecast for the northern Bahamas. Trinidad and Tobago, there we go. Tuesday, you see that rain chance that will be going up. Flooding will be a possibility. Barbados will be on the edge of it on Tuesday. Rain chance Tuesday going up. So Eastern Caribbean, especially as we get into the Southeastern Caribbean, you see in St. Lucia, rain chance is higher on Tuesday with that next tropical wave moving in. Scattered storms, mainly afternoon and evening for Haiti and the Dominican Republic. If you're not getting that, you're really hot. We've been super hot across the Caribbean. Trinidad, we've been baking. Grenada, same thing. Through the Virgin Islands, Grenada, rain chance 60% as we get into Tuesday. Virgin Islands, British Virgin Islands, U.S. Virgin Islands, and the Spanish Virgin Islands. Those are the ones just on the east side of Puerto Rico. We're going to see, again, a pop-up shower or storm. That will be a possibility, but that's it. Aruba and Curacao, Bonaire, mainly dry. And again, this time of year, if you are dry, you are really hot, and that is going to be what we'll be dealing with. St. Vincent the Grenadines Tuesday, watching out for that flood threat. And as we work our way into Guadeloupe, again, rain chance starts to bump up somewhat. Tuesday, same thing as we get into Dominica and Martinique because of that next tropical wave moving in. 50% chance of rain on Tuesday in Dominica, 60% chance as we work our way into Martinique by the time we get into Tuesday. St. Kitts and Nevis, Montserrat, most of the action will stay to the south as we work our way into later in the week. Same thing, Antigua and Bermuda, rain chance only 20% and just a very isolated chance in Anguilla. There could be a couple spotty showers from the remnants of Gert around, shouldn't last too long. St. Martin, Saba, and Statia, again, 30 to 40% chance the next 3 days. Costa Rica, watching out for some flooding. 80% chance today of rain. 90% chance for tomorrow. Not all day stuff, but again, seeing some of that rain in northeastern Venezuela, especially by Tuesday near Trinidad. That rain chance will get higher. Guyana, about a 50% chance on Tuesday, but overall the drought conditions continue and mainly dry as we get into Suriname. So lots to cover, clearly, and that's what happens this time of year. That is very usual to be tracking a lot of stuff. All eyes on what will be Idalia and Florida. Hurricane impacts are likely, not for everyone, but again, I'll be fine-tuning this, especially with that new data that comes in by tonight. Water temperatures are a major concern for any signs of it getting stronger, quicker on Tuesday. And then again, watching these stronger waves coming off the coast of Africa. As I mentioned, one looks like it'll stay away, but another one may be one of those long track ones that heads toward the Caribbean, way out in time, week and a half, almost 2 weeks out in time. So I'll be monitoring that. And we're almost halfway through hurricane season, not even at the halfway point yet. Hurricane season ends November 30th. So all eyes on Florida watching this next system. Same thing, Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama. Concerned about some of the flooding over toward the Yucatan, monitoring the northwestern Caribbean. Don't forget about WFTV.com for a resource if you have Florida ties, good one to have to get the latest information, or if you just like weather, it's fun to track weather. Not fun to watch any sort of devastation, but weather in itself can be fun to track, so that's a good resource for you. But until I see you again, I'll be watching things, as you well know, throughout the day. I hope you have a very good day ahead.